Hiya, this is Luke with Social Breakfast. We're here looking at Birmingham's musical identity. I'm here today with Johnny Doom from Kerrang Radio. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
First off, I just wanted to open by asking you if you could just tell us a little bit about your musical history, the bands you've been in the past.
I suppose just got into music big time in the 80s, really, a lot of punk stuff, along with metal, I suppose, and then started playing in a band. Wasn't very good at playing in a band, but obviously in the punk scene you can just get up and do it. Formed a band called Doom and started gigging in Birmingham at a place called The Mermaid, which was just a pub in Spark Brook. And there was other bands there. There was bands like Napalm Death and Bolt Thrower, and also used to watch loads of bands there, Conflict and Cardiacs and all these punk and hardcore bands. So just became part of this scene. And then John Peel started playing Doom on Radio 1. We got signed to a label and started gigging and just kind of getting out to Europe and playing around there. So first off, I was just a musician. And then obviously getting into more and more bands and, playing on different albums, ended up doing lots of different side projects as well. Until that kind of fizzled out a little bit in the kind of mid-90s, I suppose, really, and I started doing some other stuff after that.
What sort of introduced you to that kind of underground, all the grindcore and the crust kind of stuff?
Mixture, really. It was a guy called Daz Russell who actually runs Rebellion Festival now.
Oh, right.
And he used to put on all the bands, and it was such a mixture. He'd put on a psychedelic band, then a hardcore band, then something like Napalm Death. And we all just used to congregate there. And the other good thing about the Mermaid, it was a real hub in the centre of the country. So you get people from Bristol come in, London, Norwich, Newcastle. They'd all kind of come down to the Mermaid, and it was like a real hub. So there was that, the venue. Also, like I said, the punk ethic of just getting up and doing it. Which meant that, we didn't have that idea of, we need to be really brilliant musicians.
You've got to play perfectly.
Yeah, we just wanted to do something and get out of where we were living with our parents. The people, really. The people used to do things like tape trading. Instead of there being lots of releases out on vinyl, which it was at the time, there was whole scenes of like demos going on of brand new artists, and people used to write letters to each other and send tapes. So you'd send like a blank tape, and then someone would send you one back with all these brand new bands on it, and you'd write to someone else, and it was just this kind of loop of communication, very DIY, very underground. Like I said, it's a whole scene in itself worth looking at, really, the tape trading scene, because it was very much outside of the mainstream.
So how did that segue into like radio?
It didn't really. I mean, I was after the band started to die down, because any band you're in has a shelf life, whether you get tired of touring, tired of recording. That started to peter out. I left Doom, started doing some different projects. And then I was pretty much, like anyone else, had to find a way of getting some money coming in, something to focus on. So I started working behind the scenes in music. I started working as a stage hand, then a production runner. So I had to get all the shopping and the rider for the dressing rooms and things like that. I had to pick bands up from the hotels. So I had bands like Slayer in my car, and things like that, which were just amazing.
That's pretty nuts.
But, it was hard work as well, long hours, hard work. Behind the scenes creating gigs, setting up the speakers, the PA, the lighting. So it was interesting. But, when you work in something you're interested in, you also treat it as work. So it was kind of nice to get away from it as well a little bit. So I did that for a while, and then decided to go back and do a media degree, just because I thought it's something I've never done. Went back as a mature student, enjoyed it, really enjoyed university. kind of gets your brain moving again. You know, if you're kind of winding down or you're a bit stuck, or you don't feel like you're developing, university can kind of feed your brain. You know, so I used it, got a 2-1, which was pretty good, and just left there, and then ended up joining a mobile phone company who were just starting to do things like graphics and ringtones and talking about 3G as the future of phones. So I started making ringtones for a while. You know, not really the ideal job for a musician, but it kept things going, and, you know, kept money coming in and stuff like that.
I find a lot of musicians sort of do whatever they can on the side to bring in money, really, at the end of the day.
You have to be really adaptable. You know, I think anyone out there watching who focuses too much on what they like themselves, whether it's sound engineering or being in a band, you know, that can limit you. You've got to be open to doing lots of different things. You know, and then it was from then I got into radio because I was just lucky. My name had got passed on to the people who were forming Kerrang Radio as somebody who liked metal, somebody who was in a band, somebody who'd been around the area, and Loz Guest had to collate all the different DJs for the launch of the station, and he just ran into me and said, "Do you want to give it a go?" So I started with one show a week. I think it was called Full Metal Racket. And then went on from there to 2 shows a week, then built up to 6 shows a week, where I was pretty much at Kerrang 24/7 doing all kinds of stuff, you know, specialist shows, daytime shows, rock and roll years, and just became part of the furniture there, really, I suppose.
Cool. So, like, what would you say, like, are your most memorable, like, with all the bands you've interviewed and things like that, what would you say are your most memorable or favourite, I suppose? There's too many to mention, really. I mean, working at Kerrang as a whole was brilliant. Just an absolutely amazing experience. The team were good. They're all really professional and know their radio. So I could learn lots from them because, you know, I obviously went in with very little radio experience. So the team was brilliant. We had a great studio and offices because they really put some money into building Kerrang to be this kind of hub in the centre of the country. So it had 3 great studios, live on-air studios, had a session room, a stage, you know. So being there, you know, you'd have all types of musicians coming in and out all the time, interviewing lots of, you know, major artists, whether it's people like Avenged Sevenfold or Korn, or, you know, having bands like Foo Fighters come in or Slipknot. You know, I've met loads of them and hung out with them, and, you know, so there's too much really with Kerrang. There's too much to say. Just my whole 9 years in that studio, from when it launched in 2004, was just a lot of fun. A lot of learning and experience, and it's just sad those studios have actually gone now. Yeah, because your operation has changed like quite a lot now. Like, how does it run these days? Tell us a bit about that.
They closed the studio down. The studio was obviously very expensive to keep running, and radio relies on advertising as well to keep going, and I just don't think they could keep that studio buoyant. So it was better really for them to close it down and then move Kerrang Radio down to London. So now they're in Mapping House, which is on Oxford Street. There's a smaller team running it, so everyone's kind of working extra hours. And then people like me, I go down to London and do some stuff, but I also do some stuff up here as well, because obviously you can record anywhere. So it's a mixture at the moment for me, you know, but like I said, I do miss the studio, but I can also understand the business side of it. It is about business. It's not just about having a service for the people, you know, so I could understand, but I was just very sad for Birmingham to lose that studio. Birmingham's still pretty good. We've got Scruffy Murphy's, Subside, Uproar's doing really well. Plenty of venues as well, the Asylum, the Academy, you know, lots of promoters who are putting things on. There's almost too much to go to, I find. You know, people say, oh, there's nothing on, but there is. There's too much to go to.
What are your favourite venues around the area?
I do like the Asylum, which I was just talking about. Played there last week. It's got a big downstairs room, which is quite hard to fill. Let Live played there the other week, but we played something called Fear Fest last weekend with my band, and that was upstairs, and it was just a great room, you know. But also, I like things like Scruffy's, where it's just a pub, but they'll put bands downstairs, you know, and you get this flow of people just wandering in and looking at the bands. You've got the Flapper and Firkin, which is still doing well. And then the big venues, I'm not a massive fan of things like the Academy, because I think they're a bit sterile. You know, the drinks aren't great, stuff like that. But at the same time, I'll still go to gigs there.
As a DJ, are you able to help underground bands, sort of nurture them in a way?
I have done, yeah, definitely. I've helped give certain bands a push, but it's so difficult. It's really, really difficult because, you know, you'll get someone get in touch with you on Facebook and say, check out my band. And then I've got 300 brand new CDs here from bands that are already on labels, already touring, already kind of out there. They've got, you know, 1 million YouTube hits on their new song. So it ends up being this kind of like almost hierarchical, you know, kind of situation where you're not going to help the small guy, even if you want to. You're not going to help him who's got 100 friends and wants to expand when you've got this multitude of bands out there that are already doing it. So it ends up being quite tough to help new bands via radio. Anyway, we had an unsigned show, but it was even hard with that because the volume of stuff that you'd be sent, you know, people who wanted airplay, you just couldn't get it all on there, really.
There's a challenge of like having to filter through and like reject some people and accept others.
And it's the same with PR companies nowadays. You know, there's loads of PR companies, some reputable, who really work hard for the bands, and then others who I imagine are just making money off bands. And don't really have that much success. But PR companies, you know, they're pushy. They try and get their bands on my playlist. They badger me, send me loads of emails and kind of say, you know, we really want to get this on. It's brilliant, you know, blah, blah, blah. And in some ways, it goes back to what I said before. If that band's quite successful anyway, there's a good chance you're going to put it on because you know it's going to be self-generating. People are going to hear the track on the radio, go to see the band live. There's a big buzz about it. So it's just a difficult area. But, you know, I actually support underground music and probably like underground music myself to listen to at home more than I do mainstream music. Yeah, I think the bands that I'd probably listen to myself would be on underground labels, probably more experimental and more taking chances than the huge bands, you know, like Slipknot, Stone Sour, you know, all that kind of, all that huge stuff, really. But that's just my own taste.
What advice would you give to anyone in Birmingham thinking of starting in radio?
I think it's pretty difficult to be excited about. I think it's difficult to be excited about the amount of radio in Birmingham. You know, there's only a few stations really to choose from, and now Kerrang's gone as well. I don't know. It's tough because I'm never going to say to a student, don't study something. You know, there's great universities in Birmingham that do great radio courses. And you never know where you're going to end up in radio. You know, there's still lots of stations doing well across the country. But if you're trying to get into things like rock radio, ironically, there is quite a bit of rock radio around at the moment. You've got Planet Rock, you've got Team Rock in London, just started, and Kerrang's still down in London. But there is very few jobs. It's like saying I want a job in television. You know, there's plenty of people behind the scenes, but you know, it's still hard to get in there, to squeeze in there. You have to know the right people or be in the right place, as I was. So there's an element of luck for people. But you know, you can always, if you're really passionate about radio, you can do your own radio show, put it online, and then do another job on the side if you just want to do radio, and then keep applying once you've got experience. But you know, I feel sorry for some of the kids because there's so many kids on media courses, and I don't know whether there's the amount of jobs. You know, so it's tough to say how easy it's going to be for all these people to be employed, myself included. You know, it can go either way for me. I'm still on air at the moment and hopefully will be in the future, but you never know when things are going to change.
So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
No problem.
Cheers very much, mate.
Have a good day.